It's a fun thing about State of the City. We have a lot of PowerPoints to navigate through. So I'm going to jump into the chamber side of things in the business community. And I know both Melissa and Jay will probably talk about us being named #1 city as well. But I get to go first, so I get to say it first. It's a great tribute to our community from all of us, residents, and the great work the city does, to students and the teachers and the great work that the schools do in our business community, and the opportunities that our businesses bring and their involvement in our community. So we're very proud of that. And as part of that, the Chamber each year does a business survey of our membership to find out how things are going. And I'm going to share some of those results with you now. When we did our survey and took a look at, the question was, in 2010, your net income compared to 2009 numbers were, and seeing some more positives over last year. So just over 50% saw an increase in their numbers, whereas over 50% saw a decrease in last year's results. In terms of employee counts in our businesses, again, positive results in terms of comparing to last year. 25% of our businesses grew, whereas last year only 14% saw an increase. This year, not quite 15% had reductions, whereas last year, again, 35% saw decreases. So positive trends in those areas. In terms of sales expectations, very positive. So as you learn more and hear more in the news media about the expectations and the mood of the country, we're seeing that in our businesses as well. So 77% of our businesses expect to see sales growth this year. That compares to a 64% last year. Employment projections, again, a positive sign. 36% see growth in employment opportunities here locally. Last year we only had 27%. So again, positive signs are showing in our local economy as well. #1 issue that our businesses are facing remains the economy. Probably no big surprise, but it has decreased over last year from 68% last year to almost 62% this year. Other top issues that our businesses are facing are taxes, health care, and a larger percent in the other category. And in the other category, it's always interesting to take a look at the responses we get. A lot of them are looking for new businesses, but other comments we received are capital, looking for funds, whether it's from venture capital or from banks. Hiring and finding good people were additional remarks we had heard, and state and federal unemployment taxes were also part of our responses. We always ask how the Chamber's doing in terms of serving our business community as well. And again, positive signs that we're very pleased with. Out of last year's ratings, those that rated the Chamber a 7 to 10, 81% gave us that rating. This year, 88% gave us that rating. And in terms on the other side of things, in that 4 and under category for our ranking, 6% last year, and we're down to 2% this year. So as we talk a little bit more about our programs and opportunities, we do a good job in focusing on providing a return on value, and we try and measure that each year with our survey. 2010 was a great year for the Chamber. We did a lot of good things. We focused on strategic planning, worked with one of our Chamber members, the Align Group, and focused on a number of new initiatives and maybe a little bit of a refocus for us. Our strategic initiatives, we've narrowed those down to 5, and those are carrying forward for our 2011 year as well. They are understand the relevance of the Chamber to all members, provide relevant programs that members consider valuable tools to achieving success, and assure that each member can understand the value of their membership, become desirable to a more diverse membership base, become a hub to connect all industries and sizes of business, and be the voice to the local, state, and federal government representatives for business and community issues. As part of our planning, we developed a new vision and new mission statement. So our mission statement is to be the catalyst for a vibrant community. Our vision is through leadership, relevance, diversity, education, and innovation, we will impact our community by advancing the economy, enhance our members' success, and improve quality of life. So you can see the way the Chamber has aligned itself. It is serving our business community, but we play a bigger role than that. Our work with the school districts and the city tell that story as well, and so does our mission and vision. We're very pleased. We have a new website last year, and it's a great opportunity for us to communicate better to both our business members and the community at large. And we also have a new logo and a new look for the Chamber. So some of our highlights from the Chamber's successes in 2010 include we are currently at 540 members and growing. We've grown each year in membership over the past basically 9 years. Our members employ over 40,000 people. The average monthly attendance at events is over 500. We are the 12th largest metro area chamber of commerce. Our retention rate is at 80%. And our key focus areas really boil down to 4 areas: networking and programs, public policy, community building, and leadership. Chamber programs focus on networking, education seminars. Our Fusion group is our young professionals group, legislative forums, trade shows and expos, and our 2 major events are the golf tournament and annual gala. I want to remind everybody that our 9th annual Home Landscape and Garden Expo is set for March 19th at Grace Church. Each year we put this show on, and in the past few years we have averaged over 1,500 people in attendance at that, so it's a free event. We hope you can join us. The Chamber also has done international trips. We have a trip leaving in March for Tuscany, but our first trip was to China, and we completed our second trip to China in October of 2010. And it's a great trip. We had 25 participants, 10 days. We had a blog on our website that people followed along, and our next trip is planned for October of 2011, going back to China. So if you're interested in some international opportunities, check out our website for those things as well. Chamber Awards, one of the things we're proud of is how we can recognize excellence. We do a Volunteer of the Year Award. Our Golden Apple Awards are focused on recognizing excellence in education. Our post-secondary scholarships recognize students and provide dollars to help them further their education. Student Citizenship Award, our Dr. Gene L. Harris Scholarship we adopted from the city of Eden Prairie and recognizes diversity within our community. And to date, we've given out over $65,000 in scholarships since we started our scholarship program. Top speakers in the past year: Governor Tim Pawlenty, the CEO of C.H. Robinson, John Wehoff. Our big announcement was New York Times bestselling author Deanna Favre. And we always like to highlight Chamber events. We have a lot of great speakers, seminars, but a lot of our events have a lot of fun too. And you never know who's going to show up. Even this past December, one of Santa's reindeer and his head elf was at our luncheon as well. So we have fun at our programs. As Regina highlighted, we had our annual gala, largest event of the year, and our largest gala in quite some time, and most successful that I think the Chamber has ever had, and that was our Bahama Breezes at Hazeltine. And we should have known when we named it the Bahama Breezes that morning we would get about 12 inches of snow and somehow shovel out through all that, get everything set up, and still have over 300 hardy people come out and enjoy a wonderful event. And our event this year will be on November 12th at the Sofitel. The Chamber also welcomes additions to the business community. Our ambassadors and board of directors do a great job of getting out and doing ribbon cuttings and welcoming new businesses to our community. And in terms of representing in businesses, we focus on public policy and business issues. We continue to work with the city on highway access signage and wayfinding to help people find their way through our community. The Flying Cloud Airport Modernization Plan came to fruition. It was a project and a piece that the Chamber has championed for a number of years. The Southwest Light Rail Corridor, we continue to work with the county and other stakeholders to maximize the benefits of light rail and minimize the negative impacts that it may have. Coordinate our business agenda and also coordinate with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce on their issues and where they see things at the state capitol. We also work with the state chamber on an initiative called Grow Minnesota, and that is where our volunteers are going out and meeting with local businesses, finding out how they're doing, and providing that data back to a master database so that the state chamber can track trends and share that data with our elected officials. And then we also worked on special service districts, both with the city and our businesses in the major center area, and specifically in the town center planning process. We talk about partnerships, opportunities, and initiatives. We have great working relationships with the city and the school district, and again, I would say that was definitely reflected in the Money Magazine ranking. We work to keep businesses here and recruit businesses here, and we partner with other chambers to bring better business opportunities to our members. And we also provide new and innovative programs and events. And we know that health is a major issue for businesses with their employees. We also have some great health-related businesses in Eden Prairie. And so starting this year, the Chamber is going to kick off what we're calling the Chamber Challenge, which will be a 5K run and walk. We have 14 board of directors, and I know some of those are with us today, and I would ask them to please stand and be recognized. And I know who you are. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. And then I want to recognize our staff. Laura and Amy do a fantastic job for us. They're off to my left. I see them looking at me. If you'd please stand and be recognized for the great work you do. And then finally, just highlighting one of our programs that maybe we're most proud of, and that is our student membership program. We were the first Chamber of Commerce in the nation to launch a program designed to have students as chamber members. And each year we have 20 high school students from Eden Prairie participate in programs, volunteer activities, job shadows, and they do a great job. It's a great learning experience for them and just as well for our members. We always receive comments from our members on how impressed they are with the future generations, the knowledge they have. Some of them have already started their own businesses, and it's always amazing to see a 17 or 18-year-old that has their own business and is out working and making things happen. But those are the types of cooperative opportunities we like to create in our organization along with our partners in the community. And with that, I would like to turn over the program to our school superintendent, Melissa Krull, who will give us a better snapshot of the schools.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. You have to reply. I have almost half of a voice here, so I'm going to do my best and use this microphone as well as I can. Thank you for including the schools in this State of the City discussion today. I just want to echo a couple of things that Pat said, and that is that the schools, we are so proud to be in partnership with the city and the chamber. And Pat and I get to say that for many, many years we've had a really wonderful partnership with the city and the chamber, and I think it's because of that partnership that we get to have in this city. We do such tremendously positive work as partners, and that doesn't happen in a lot of cities. It's unusual to have this great partnership that we have, and it's modeled here today by the opportunity to speak on behalf of all three entities as a part of the city of Eden Prairie. And so, of course, I have to respond to Pat's remark, which is it's great to be a part of a city that's #1 in the country. There's no question that that's something to be very proud of, and as a school district, we too are very proud of that. Before I get going, I just would like to make a couple of introductions. And first of all, I think we have 3 of our 7 school board members here today, and I would like them to please stand so you could see them and acknowledge them. Carol Bomben, Holly Parker, and Renee Jacobus, I think, are here. Where are you guys? There they are. Hardworking board members, very dedicated to the schools and to the kids in this community. We also have several of our staff members here, our principals, and some of our executives are here, and our administrators and support staff through communications are here. I would just like if you would please stand, those of you that are here today from the school district, all of you. There they are. Another group of hardworking, dedicated folks. There's a lot more where that comes from, but for today, I want you to see these folks. They're leading our schools and leading our initiatives and working very hard on behalf of the district, and I'm really proud to have them here today. As I thought about talking about the state of the district today, it occurred to me that the best way to talk about the state of the district is there are two things I'd like to do today. We started off this school year, kicking off the school year with our employees and some of our city officials with a very short video about the state of the district that I think does a remarkable job of telling the story about what's happening in this school district. And then following that, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about some of the recent changes that we have been talking about and that we're about to make in the school district going into the next school year. So I'd like to come back and talk about that for the moment. If you would just please sit back and relax and enjoy this piece, I think it'll tell a wonderful story about our schools.
I love that I get to work with kids every day and that they're excited to see me and I'm excited to see them.
Just like watching my students transform, like just the way they're like start at the beginning of the year, if that has to go, and how they end the year with like behavior-wise or just academic-wise.
The most important work I do is meeting individual needs for students and working one-on-one and make it all possible for them to go to college and figure out how to make it work.
As a parent educator, the thing that I love is seeing the growth in the parents, and they will come from being very unsure of what they're doing and walking out feeling very confident and having the tools that they need to parent their kids in the best way that they can.
Children need good nutrition to improve their learning experiences, to feed their brains. So that's what we're doing, to try to give them good nutrition, and we work really hard on giving them a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables.
The most important thing is just to make the kids feel comfortable, secure and safe, and then they can move on, and it makes it easier for them to understand what's being taught.
We feel it's very important for our teachers to come into a clean building, clean classroom every day. We think that this is important for their learning environment and for their personal health.
We are the first things they see, the first things they see in the morning, the last things they see in the evening. And as bus drivers, we can either make or break that morning.
Whenever I have a new group of students, I just always make sure that I set really high expectations for everybody, despite their backgrounds or where they come from or anything like that.
I love when kids bring in different aspects of, their lives and, and cultures and different things like that, and ways that I can figure out, my skill of teaching and helping each one of those students be successful.
Well, I teach from a multicultural perspective, and I oftentimes will bring in things like music and that, and comment on the importance of different cultures, and I think that draws in a lot of different types of students and makes them interested in learning.
Basically, I take the approach under the umbrella of individualized educational plan, because all students need something different, and each student needs to receive what he or she needs, not what everybody else needs.
We do monthly goals that are based on reading, and then constantly having those conversations, because the goals are posted every month, and having those conversations with the students about where they're at, and then that weekly progress monitoring piece is, giving them the tools and the strategies to get a better score next week.
As I looked at the year, I thought one thing that I could really do to improve learning would be to take a more focused approach on reading comprehension.
I really learned a lot, not only because my PLC or the staff development, but also I learned from other teachers that they were open to share many strategies or games or little things that I apply.
As teachers, we know that the more variety that we can offer students, the more they're going to grab a hold of what we want them to learn. We can't just rely on the written text anymore.
I love that all the new technology we're lucky enough to have, whether it's from iTouches to the laptops to the smart boards, that we can incorporate that.
I love to learn, and I think it's really important to instill that in kids. And I think that in order for them to learn, it's really important for them to be comfortable and confident in their learning environment.
We have had these staff meetings that are made up of vertical teams. So it was somebody from every grade level, specialist area, our resource teachers, our playground teachers, lunchroom teachers, all part of that conversation so we could hear everybody's perspectives.
It's beautiful when you see that smile on their faces and they feel included and they feel that they are part of the whole group. And you feel rewarded every day when you see that little face smiling with happiness because they were able to comprehend and understand something that was like a mountain for them.
Caring about the students, really knowing that the students need to know you care for them, you're there for them, you believe in them, and building relationships in a safe, fun classroom environment really contributes to how well students do academically and socially.
I really feel like I'm good at building relationships with students, and so I think really taking the opportunity to get to know the kids.
One of the main things I believe that happened in our class to increase learning for students was not so much a strategy, but more a belief about the students. This year I really took ownership of it being my responsibility for the grades they get and for the homework that they turn in or don't turn in. And so I took their achievement level as a direct reflection on how I was doing as a teacher.
It's amazing. These students are amazing.
I think most of my pay comes from the satisfaction that I've done my very best to help kids learn.
It makes me feel really proud because seeing them doing their math and reading and getting along with the others, and you can tell they learn the language. You can see they have a big smile on their face, and it makes me feel really good.
We're monitoring everything from forerunners to things that you normally would think of as precursors to academic learning. So we're really excited to see the growth on paper as well as in our heart and in our own minds.
Okay, there you have it. I think that piece does the best job of all of communicating what's happening and what's been happening in the school district. And, you know, I could talk a long time about what that video really points to, and it's certainly a story that is to be told in Eden Prairie, but it's also a story to be told in most school districts around the country in their efforts to serve all the kids that they're responsible for serving. While they raise achievement for everyone, they have to simultaneously close the gap for the kids that are not achieving, and that complicated formula is one that every district is faced with right now, and I can proudly tell you that Eden Prairie is making great progress toward. So that's what I really wanted you to hear. Now let me talk to you a little bit about where we're going, because there have been a lot of discussions about, well, now what, and what's all this conversation that we've been having in this community about the schools. This picture I have before you now is just a snapshot of what's happening demographically in Eden Prairie. This is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if you can't see the small print, 94% of the kids in the school district were white. And then you can see how we break this down demographically by African American, Hispanic, Asian, and American Indian. It was predominantly a white school district. And as we change and we go 10 years later, you can see that again, these numbers are shifting a bit. And they're not only changing in the school district, but of course they're changing in the community as well. And then if you go out to 09-10, again, you see that we now have made some more dramatic shifts in terms of the populations of kids that we're serving. And when that population changes, the needs that we have to change how we reach them becomes very, very, very important to us. And so we pay attention to these kinds of things. We pay attention to the changing demographics when you look at limited English proficiency. So the population here is the number of kids that now come into the schools for whom English is not their first language. And if you go back to 1997, you can see how that number has changed dramatically when we start to look at who we're serving in our schools. And then if you go out once more, you'll look, if you go back to 1997, the percentages of kids for whom are being served by free lunch or reduced price lunch, that number has changed dramatically. And I think there's even been some recent coverage about Eden Prairie and other neighboring communities with regard to this very same point. So again, it's something to, it's a data point that we look at as we try to think about the populations of kids that we are serving and the ones that we're going to be serving going forward, and how do we think about instruction so that we make sure that we do that thing, which is everybody climbs and the gap closes. And as kids come to us with different needs and different experiences, the strategies that we use to teach them has to look different. So we've been having this discussion in Eden Prairie for the last couple of years, but most recently, certainly the last 3 months, the last 6 months, this notion of continued excellence through transformation. And there are lots of parts to this, but let me just give you some of the highlights. So what's the purpose? You know, what's the thinking behind it? In the schools, we've been talking about our facilities, and we've been talking about improving the learning conditions long term. So we're thinking out, we're thinking forward. We're thinking about the transitions that kids make and the way the schools are configured. And our schools have been configured, as you guys probably know, as K-4 structures, then a 5-6 transition, then a 7-8 transition, then a 9-12 transition, and those have worked for us for a long time. But what we found several things. First of all, we have a responsibility to make really good use of our resources and efficient use of our resources, and we know that we were really becoming imbalanced in terms of how we were using our capacity of our schools. So just that in and of itself triggered a conversation about using our facilities differently. And so we had this discussion about how do we get our arms around that? How do we fill up the schools that are becoming less full, and how do we lighten the load for the schools that are overbooked, and how do we lessen the need to lease space in the community and spend money on spaces that we really don't need? We actually have space in our schools. We shouldn't be spending extra funds, but we do have to reconfigure them to use them more efficiently. But thirdly, we're also noticing isolation by low-income children at just certain schools in the community, and that isolation leads to low achievement, and we know this. And as our numbers continue to change, as you just saw, we know that our job is to ensure that we balance those schools and balance them demographically so that all kids achieve at their highest, most prominent opportunity. And so part of this discussion was also about that, eliminating the transitions that kids have to make from school to school so that they keep climbing and keep growing, and then balance them demographically and use our space more efficiently. So those are sort of the nuts and bolts behind the discussion that we've been having. Now let me talk to you a little bit about some of the great things that are going to come as a result of this most recent decision to move forward for next fall. with newly configured schools, new boundaries, and of course balanced schools demographically. There's a lot of good things that are going to come from this, and we're pretty excited and very happy to be moving forward in this direction on behalf of the schools, only to keep the good news that you just saw. We've got to keep that moving forward. We've got to keep going in that direction in spite of the fact that the needs that kids have are starting to look very different for us. But one of the prominent things I think you should know is that the STEM principles, science, technology, engineering, and math, you're reading a lot about them. You probably are hearing about how schools are integrating those concepts into their programs. Well, that's an important thing to do as a school in this country. Everybody knows that the most well-educated kids graduating from high school today are graduating well-versed in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we know that. And we think the earlier you start those principles and embed them in your programs, the better for kids. So our goal now, under newly configured K-6 schools, will be to embed those principles across the board for all kids at all levels in our schools. We also learned a lot from some of our schools that had some great success. And I'm going to use, first of all, I got to tell you that all of the schools in Eden Prairie have some pretty amazing success levels. So that's the good news. In some spots where we had a high preponderance of low-income children, we had to make special efforts to really support them. And so we made financial investments in those schools. Forest Hills, for example, is the school I'm talking about. And as a result of those investments, when you have that high concentration of kids who have needs, we learned some really good things. We learned that when you have extended day programming for kids with familiar teachers and familiar adults, some of those kids do much better in school. We learned when the kids stay connected to adults over time, from first grade to second, and second to third, and third to fourth, those relationships that they have with their teachers give them the opportunities to achieve at higher levels. We've learned that when you continually assess learning and look at those results on a regular basis and then instruct your teaching accordingly, kids do better in school. And so just at one school, for example, they tried some very unique strategies. You can go to any one of the elementaries in our school district, and there's some spectacular strategies that are being used that we want to be used at all of the schools. So we're going to begin that next fall. We'll be replicating the best practices that we've seen work on behalf of all of the kids in our schools, and we're going to make those consistent across every school. So every K-6 school will be applying the same principles, the same ideas, the same STEM curriculum. And so we'll have some tremendous consistency at all of those levels with one fewer transition, smaller cohorts of teachers, smaller cohorts of students collaborating on behalf of the kids that they have before them. So it's a tremendous opportunity to rethink what we're doing to keep propelling us forward as we think about the future for these kids. One more thing that's, I think, pretty exciting for us in education, these are important features, like how much time do kids spend reading every day in school? I don't know if you can remember how much time you spent reading in school, but we know that kids should have at least 120 uninterrupted minutes of literacy time every day. We know that. That will start consistently across the board next fall. They have to have 75 minutes at least of uninterrupted math time, 50 minutes of uninterrupted science time. If we're really going to take this STEM programming seriously, we've got to create a schedule that allows for this kind of learning to take place. We'll be adding 10 more minutes to the day. It may seem like not much to you, but actually 10 minutes a day for a full year, as Carol Baumann has pointed out, is 4 more days of school. Who'd thunk? And that's hard to get, let me tell you. Adding days to a calendar is very difficult. So we'll be lengthening the school day. And the last feature I think that's important also is just that we're aligning all of our preschool programming. So in the past, if you were one of our users, you enter preschool through, there's 3 different doors that you could sort of enter into the programs in this district. 3 different registration systems, lots of good programming, but it's important to align that. So we've now aligned that, and every birth through 5-year-old who's participating in some preschool or family ed program comes in the door one stop. It'll be early childhood programming for all Eden Prairie children. And as a result of the new configuration, we now have room to expand the program, offer far more classes than we could before, eliminate our waiting lists, and serve as many birth through 5-year-olds as want to participate in our programs. And early childhood is a very important place to start. If you're going to make an investment in schools and education, you got to start at the earliest level possible, and we now have the capacity to do that across the board for our community, for all children, without turning anybody away, which I think is really important to us. And the last piece, and then I'll be done, is just to give you a snapshot on finances. It's always an important discussion to have in public schools. You read about it every single day in the paper. But I'm proud to tell you that last year, I'm not proud to tell you we had to cut $10 million, but we did do it. And I'm proud to tell you that it was in collaboration with our staff that really made it happen. We had about $4 to $5 million in wage holds across the board among every employee that contributed to a $10 million reduction, meaning we only had to then contribute about $5 in budget reductions because our employees stepped up to the plate and said, we'll participate in this reduction. We know what it means. And that speaks volumes for the staff in the district and their commitment and support for the schools. We haven't gone out for a referendum in 7 years. That's almost unheard of these days. But we've been fortunate in this district that we haven't had to do that. I cannot promise you that that will last much longer. And we'll be certainly having conversations about what the future looks like for us in terms of new funding. But it stems from just that flat rate of increase, that flat rate that we've received in terms of our state aid. And school districts all over Minnesota and all over the country are struggling financially. But when state funding is flat and your costs for your school district continue to rise, it's very difficult to reconcile that without looking for alternative sources of funding. So for the moment, we've had good fortune in this district, and budget cutting has become something we know how to do pretty well. We don't want to continue to have to do that, and we certainly don't want to continue to have to wage hold for employees, but we also know that there are realities in front of us, and we're going to be looking at every option we have to continue to stay afloat financially while improving and growing the academic achievement results for our students. So I close with this quote because I think it speaks to the work of the district and the work of our community and our parents and our students. And that is that, some people dream of success while others wake up and work really hard at it. And I have to say, when I think about the staff and the students and the parents and the community on behalf of the schools in this community, whether it's being number one or looking at great results or making change, which we've just been doing, people are working really hard on behalf of kids. And we've had some really tough discussions in this community about our schools lately, and there's no secret about that. But what I know is that whether people supported these changes or didn't support them, they cared very much about what happens to kids in this community, and that I know we have in common. And I think it's from that point going forward that we look for ways to come together as a community and keep working, not only on behalf of the whole community, but also just on behalf of the schools. And we're very ready to do that as we go forward, sort of into this next generation of change. So I thank you so much for your attention today and listening about the story and the state of the school district. So thank you for that. And I'd like to now introduce my colleague, the interim city manager for Eden Prairie, Jay Lahammer. Thanks.
Well, you are used to seeing Pat and Melissa up here, but not me. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about the lucky star that I seem to get to walk under from time to time. I get to live in Eden Prairie, work in Eden Prairie, play in Eden Prairie, and today have the professional privilege of standing before you and talking about the state of the city in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, which is very, very incredible, and I take that with a lot of pride. And I'd like to recognize all of the city employees that are here today that have provided such great support all along in the time that I've been here, but well before that too. So if I could ask the city employees to stand and be recognized, please. Many of you know me as the Parks and Recreation Director, and when you're the Parks and Recreation Director, nobody pays much attention to what you're wearing. But when you're the interim city manager, as it happened to me this morning, I walked in, there were several people waiting to see what I was wearing, and they said, "Oh, black suit, white shirt, purple tie." I thought that's kind of strange. All of a sudden I hear somebody pick up the phone and say, "Is this a garden room?" He must have said yes. He said, "Black tablecloths, white napkins, purple napkins." So thank you for that. So we'll get on with the presentation and no more jokes. 2010 was obviously a great year for the city of Eden Prairie, and like Pat and Melissa said before me, it's everybody in this room that it took to be that #1 city in America. It may be the city that is producing some of the buttons and the pens, and they're at your table, and we hope you take them with you. The good news for all of us is this is a 2-year award, so for 2011 we're all still in the #1 city in the United States. This is some progress that we'd like to share with you that we're very proud of. It's not very glitzy, but it's something that we think is important, and we're making good progress at. You'll see some of the stickers around 20, 40, 15. And right now we are 1/3 of the way to improving our energy efficiency in facilities by 20%. We're halfway to our fleet efficiency by 40%. And we have 4 more years to be able to accomplish this. And we're doing it through many different creative and innovative ways on behalf of our city employees. One of the things that I really believe makes Eden Prairie great are the community partnerships, and many of them have already been mentioned today and recognized. But you should know that this is the 50th year of the Lions Club in Eden Prairie. I'm not exactly sure of the exact date, but my story that I'm sticking to is they were here before the Vikings. We also have 16 athletic associations that provide services for over 13,000 kids served on an annual basis. That's a great experience for those kids. The Historical Society has really, in this last year, put more emphasis on some of the events. You may have attended one of those that are antiques or arts in the garden. And as Mayor Tara Lukens indicated, the 30th year of the Eden Prairie Foundation, and I think all of us in here have benefited from being a part of that experience, and I know through some of the city parks and recreation programs, we've been able to provide a lot better services based on their kind contributions. We've talked a lot in the last few years about some of the generous giving that's happened in Eden Prairie, things like our Arts Center that's up and doing well. When we told the story of the remodeled community center and all of the community involvement it took to fund and make that happen, that's up and doing well. The new one this year is we had some giving from 2 families, and it's private giving that enabled us to build an observatory with a telescope housed down at Staring Lake, and we've been able to grand open that, have quite a few people come through, and we really look forward to especially working more with the schools for this to be used by all people within the community. Our citywide open houses, that's really a time where you see and meet a lot of residents right out in our parking lot. Kids get to sit in the fire trucks, see the firefighters put on the police helmets, and get to see what a snowplow driver looks like when they sit up in the big truck. And so it's a great time to share what we do as city staff on behalf of the residents. We had a grand opening of the Eden Prairie Liquor Store over by Rainbow Foods. Great feedback on that, and it really looks nice. We were glad to be able to do that. The Night to Unite in Eden Prairie is a great time that we see a lot of people come out of their houses, go into their cul-de-sacs or to the end of their blocks and unite with their neighbors. We had more than 114 registered block parties this year. It's a great chance for our council, some of our city staff to get out and be able to talk and interact with some of the residents and neighbors. We also have been working with decreases in budgets and flat budgets. You can see from this chart that we too are working with the economy and hoping that some of those numbers get better, but we still think we've been able to provide some very good services to the residents. We've been hearing a lot about national and state numbers, and Pat referred to this, and I think one of the things that most of us recognize in Eden Prairie is it is different here, and our backyards are different here. And when you look at this chart, when you see what our employment showed in fall of 2010, it's not great, but it's not bad compared to others. And as we look around and hear sometimes metro statistics or state or nationwide statistics, I think it's important that we remember how fortunate we are, not just to live in the United States and Minnesota, but also Eden Prairie, because there's great things that all of you do and all of our community members do to make this a better quality of life. We had the opportunity last week, Councilmember Aho, Mayor Tara Lukens, myself and other staff, to tour Walmart, their recent renovation and remodel. And not just did it look a lot nicer and more inviting and have great strategies for us as shoppers, but they indicated to us how much more they want to get involved and be a part of improving this community. And that was nice and exciting to have a part of that conversation. Traffic, we're getting better. Eden Prairie sometimes gets a little bit of a rap for traffic, and my defense to that is We've got the creek valleys, the lakes, the hillsides, and that doesn't lend itself well to a grid. And that's great for us. Single tree lane going right through towards the mall next to what is becoming Bobby and Steve's and Windsor Plaza. That is really helping with making traffic and moving people through those shopping experiences. Pioneer Trail, I wish I had a little better picture for you, but for those of you who make your way from east to west or west to east throughout our community, you remember what the last couple years were like, and I think you see the benefits of what's happened now that it's finished. Also along Flying Cloud Drive, we were able to install a trail along there that leads people. You can go from Gander Mountain to Burger King walking or on a bike, and also better trail access on the other side for shopping experiences in and around the mall. I show you these charts. One is park rentals. You know, we've heard a lot about what the economy has done to local businesses. One of the things that it's done to us as a government, or also as a park and recreation department, is it's increased our demands for services. When you look at our park facility rentals, a little bit of this, we wonder why. We really didn't bring more rental facilities on, but when you look back and hear anecdotal stories about people staying closer to home, looking for things that are more affordable, instead of sometimes having the large wedding in a big hall that's a lot of money, they might rent our barn, our pavilion, and make use of things that are more affordable but also good quality. So we're happy to be able to provide that, and this statistic is very applicable to many of our program levels where people are staying closer to home, registering their kids for art center programs or local basketball camps at the schools rather than going out state or having to pay for some of the travel. The false alarm percentage is one thing I wanted to highlight as just a great innovation and great strategy from our city departments, and I think it is indicative of a lot of other efforts that have been made. But this is basically an educational effort and a follow-up effort. There's not much cost involved, but it's putting that emphasis on education, where we've been able to cut the amount of false alarms on fire quite dramatically over the last few years. And that's important because if it is an alarm, we respond. We send people out, we send trucks out, and if we get there and it's a false alarm, that seems like quite the waste of energy and effort. If we can deter those false alarms and only get the real ones, that's what we want to be able to use our efforts towards. Social media is something that we can't turn the TV on without hearing about, and we have embraced it. Award-winning Facebook page since 2009 when it started, nearly 2,300 followers. So I won't be offended if you pull out your smartphone and become our fan right here and now. And if you don't do it now, do it later today. It's a great way to get city information. It's also a great way that we monitor how people are feeling about the city. It's a good two-way conversation that we can have. We also have city news, and you can go right to our website and sign up for any one or all 80 of your interest areas. We have 10,000 people that get e-newsletters or e-information passed right on to them. Again, low cost, but great way to keep people informed and understand what's happening in their city. 4 separate blogs, fairly popular, and a great way for us to communicate as well on a little more personal feel to it. And a new one with the Eden Prairie liquor blog. So if you want to know about that wine to pair with your fish or your chicken, that might be a good place to start. We've recently done a survey, and we do this every 2 years with Decision Resources, and they are now still crunching and compiling some of the data. But one of the things they were able to share with us is what do people like most in Eden Prairie? And just like it does for the last 10, 12 years, up comes parks, open spaces, schools, friendly people, and close to shopping. They are the top. What is very unique to Eden Prairie as well is one of the questions is, what do you like least? And there's things that get a couple percentages here and there, traffic, road noise, some of those things. But 24% of the people respond by saying, there's nothing I like least. When you go across the metro average, which Decision Resources does, that only comes up 5%. That's pretty spectacular about Eden Prairie. And when we share in another month the results of that survey, they will tell us how it is spectacular about Eden Prairie. It's rarefied air. There's only a couple cities in any of the categories that can achieve some of the numbers of satisfaction that this city is able to achieve. We have kind of a fun program going on. It's called the Way to Go program, and this is about helping keep our employees engaged in healthy activities, and we reap the benefits of that. They reap the benefits of that. Our budgets and healthcare reap the benefits of that. And we're a competitive group. And as you can see, midway through, we are in the lead, and we have no intent on giving up that lead, and that is a result of our engaged employees. I protest the body they put under my face, though. As many of you know, and the reason you're seeing me standing up here is we had a change in leadership, and Scott Neal left our organization after 8 great years of building a very good organization and quite the culture. So we said goodbye to him. His swing looks pretty good. It looks like he's going to miss a little bit out in front of the ball, and I'm not going to tell you if I caught it or dropped it. Looking ahead to 2011, again, for us it's exciting. We're hearing great things, or at least better things about the economy. And usually then what that means for us is we're even a little bit better and a little bit faster coming through, and I'll show you some of those examples. We have a new city council, and I'd like to recognize 3 of them who are here with us today. Mayor Tira Lukens, Councilmember Brad Aho, Councilmember Kathy Nelson. If you could stand and be recognized. The 2 on the left are Sherry Butcher-Wickstrom and Ron Case, and they couldn't be here today. But I think what you see up here are faces and people that you recognize. It's a council that is well equipped for the challenges coming ahead. It's a council that has a lot of history with Eden Prairie. And so as staff, we're excited to continue to work with them for 2011. The council itself has a job to do here in the next month, and part of that job is to select a new city manager, and there are 3 current candidates that they are currently considering. New development, even in winter construction, as you drive by, as you're heading by the mall, if you look to the left, you're going to see Bobby and Steve's Auto World, a pretty unique facility, and quite the nice-looking guest and repair station there. If you look to the right, you'll see a new strip mall, Smashburger, Sport Clips, and Verizon, and they all look like they're getting pretty close to being open. So that's really exciting in a time where people are concerned about development and places wanting to invest in our community. So we're glad that we're continuing to see those efforts. This has been a fun one to watch as the wrecking ball took it down, if you followed the progress, and next thing you know, it was just bare dirt. And now Menards, every time I come by there at night, I always make sure to sneak a peek because the lights are on and there's a lot of progress going on inside. So that's coming fairly soon. We've heard a lot about shovel-ready projects. This one, the shovels are almost in the ground to have that 494-169 interchange. We're very excited about that, and again, only helping with traffic. The Southwest LRT was mentioned before, too. Our elected officials have had the opportunity to be a part of shaping that, being on committees. Our staff is very engaged. We met last week with the county officials as well as the Met Council officials to get to know each other because we are going to be spending a lot of time with them over the next several years trying to implement and make this happen. Again, more excitement of new city tenants in some of the buildings that are maybe next to our liquor stores or that we own, but more things happening with Complete Nutrition, Ace Daycare, which was a former kinder care site. Improving facilities. If you've been to Miller Park or if you've heard about it lately, over the last several years, we've been going in phases because a lot of it's been done with fundraising, over $300,000 of fundraising efforts. But what's exciting for me this summer, especially the first hot day, we have just built a splash pad or a spray park. And so I hope to be one of the first ones to get wet. I know which spray gun sprays the furthest, so I'm going to choose that one and invite others to join me. Also, Flying Cloud Fields, you've seen that, our relationship with the Airports Commission. We've worked out an agreement where we can use 25 acres towards Grace Church and expand the ball fields, and you will see the shovels and the dozers and the scrapers this spring. You will see them starting to build those ball fields, and hopefully we'll get the seed in the ground so it can grow, and we'll be playing soccer and lacrosse and baseball there within a couple of years. Again, thank you for everything that you do to help and support this city. Again, from my standpoint as a homeowner and as somebody who has the privilege to work here and work for this organization and be a part of this group, we look forward to a great 2011, and we look forward to maintaining that #1 status. So thank you very much.